There is a quiet concern many believers carry, but rarely name. Not that they lost their faith, not that they stopped believing, but that something inside stopped growing. You still pray, you still believe, you still show up, yet your faith feels unchanged, flat, untouched by God in a way it once was. And the most unsettling part is this: nothing feels wrong enough to alarm you. Stay with me. This is not about fear, it's about clarity. Sign number 1. When faith feels stable, but no longer responsive. We learn to explain the feeling away. I'm just tired. This is a calmer season. Not everyone feels God the same way. So we adjust. We normalize dryness. We mistake familiarity for maturity. We confuse routine with depth. You still know the language of faith. You still recognize truth when you hear it. But prayer no longer stretches you. Scripture no longer interrupts you. Conviction feels quieter than it used to. And that calm you've settled into, it may not be peace. Stay with me. What we misunderstand here shapes everything that follows. Because Scripture never treats spiritual stagnation as neutral, not because God is harsh, but because faith is meant to be alive. Not perfect, alive. Near the end of this message, I'll show you one overlooked sign that helps you discern whether your faith is being quietly sustained by God or merely maintained by habit. Most people miss it, not because it's hidden, but because it's uncomfortable. Before we get there, we need to frame this carefully, without panic and without denial. Sign number 2. When faith remains, but responsiveness fades. Jesus spoke often about growth, not to threaten, but to awaken. Scripture consistently ties living faith to fruit, not as a measure of worth, but as evidence of connection. Fruitlessness is never described as harmless, but neither is it treated carelessly. The warning is relational, not performative. It's about proximity, abiding, remaining. Not the loss of belief, but the loss of responsiveness. And here is what makes this so difficult to notice. Stagnation rarely feels rebellious. It feels stable, predictable, safe, which is why Jesus addressed people who were confident, religiously active, and certain they were fine. So let me ask you, not to accuse, but to clarify. When was the last time Scripture confronted you, not just comforted you? When was the last time obedience cost you something small but real? Not emotional intensity, not dramatic sacrifice, just responsiveness. If your faith never disrupts you anymore, it may no longer be leading you. This is not condemnation, it's an invitation to pay attention. Because faith can remain sincere while slowly becoming passive. And that's where quiet drift begins. Some of you already know which sign speaks to you. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to defend it. Just acknowledge it inwardly. Because what comes next will only help if you're honest here. The next sign doesn't question your belief. It reveals what your faith is responding to now. Sign number 3. When seeking quietly fades, even though belief remains. Here is the sign most people don't expect. Living faith produces new desire, not louder emotion, not constant intensity, but movement of the will toward God. When faith is alive, it keeps drawing you outward, toward obedience, toward truth, toward surrender. When faith begins to stall, something subtle happens. Belief remains, practice remains, but seeking fades. You don't stop praying, you stop lingering. You don't reject Scripture, you stop letting it question you. Obedience becomes selective, not rebellious, just careful. And this matters because Scripture never describes maturity as numbness. Maturity still listens, still responds, still bends. This isn't about losing salvation, it's about losing sensitivity. And most people don't notice, because nothing collapses all at once. Stay with me. This isn't meant to unsettle you, it's meant to help you name what you're already sensing. Clarity protects you from fear. Avoidance keeps you stuck.
Sign number 4.
When faith is still present, but something else begins to lead. Faith rarely stops growing because of open rebellion. More often, it slows because of quiet displacement. God isn't rejected, He's postponed. You still trust Him, but other rhythms begin to lead your life. Urgency fades, awe softens, dependence becomes optional, and over time, faith becomes something you carry instead of something you follow. This is why Scripture emphasizes abiding, remaining, continuing, not because God is fragile, but because relationship is responsive. Faith that no longer responds doesn't disappear, but it does become passive. And passive faith struggles most when pressure comes. Don't skip this next part. If you've ever wondered why faith feels thinner under stress, this is where the reason becomes clear. When growth slows, something else quietly fills the space. Control, comfort, distraction. Not sinful things, just safer ones. Conviction becomes easier to delay, truth easier to agree with than obey, and eventually, faith asks less of you than it once did. This isn't because God withdraws, it's because responsiveness weakens. And here's the grace-filled truth many miss. God does not abandon you in this place. He waits, He invites, He gently exposes what has taken priority, not to shame you, but to restore closeness. Someone you love may be living this quietly, not drifting loudly, just slowly. And awareness, not pressure, is often what God uses first.
Sign number 5.
When faith continues, but sensitivity weakens under pressure. The way back isn't intensity or effort. It's something simpler and far more overlooked. Here is the part most people don't expect, and almost everyone overlooks. Hunger does not always lead to obedience. Very often, obedience restores hunger. We assume we must feel alive again before we move. Scripture shows the opposite pattern. When someone continues to obey without emotional reinforcement, something quiet begins to change. Not overnight, not dramatically. Sensitivity returns before feeling does. Awareness before intensity. This is not about earning God's nearness. God is already near. This is about retraining the heart to respond again. Prayer offered without emotion still forms attentiveness. Scripture opened without excitement still reorders desire. Obedience practiced without momentum still reshapes hunger. This is why dryness does not always mean decline. Sometimes it means faith is being grounded below the surface. So here is the decision, not loud, not dramatic. Will you wait to feel responsive again? Or will you choose to respond, even while feeling unchanged? Not more discipline, not more effort. Just one neglected act of obedience returned too quietly. One truth you stopped sitting with. One prayer rhythm you let go of. One conviction you postponed too long. This is not about fixing yourself. It's about staying available. Growth begins where resistance ends.
Sign number 6.
When obedience returns, but feelings don't. There is something important you need to hear now, especially if you've already decided to respond. Sometimes you return to obedience and nothing feels different. Prayer still feels quiet. Scripture still feels ordinary. Your emotions don't catch up right away. This is where many believers misunderstand what's happening. They assume obedience failed, or worse, that God is disappointed. But Scripture shows a different pattern. God often allows faith to mature without immediate emotional feedback. Not to distance himself, but to strengthen what faith is resting on. Stay with me. This distinction will protect you from discouragement. If you miss this, you may misinterpret growth as failure. Not all dryness means the same thing. There is dryness that comes from neglect, where prayer is avoided, truth is postponed, and resistance quietly grows. But there is also dryness that comes from growth, where obedience continues even without emotional reinforcement. Neglect hardens the heart over time. Growth softens it, even when it feels dull. Neglect makes you defensive. Growth makes you teachable. So ask yourself, not critically, but honestly, is obedience making you more open or more resistant? God's silence never leaves you unchanged. It either reveals avoidance or forms endurance.
Sign number 7.
When time passes and nothing seems to change. There is one more test that quietly reveals whether faith is being prepared or gently being warned. It doesn't come with clarity, it doesn't feel spiritual. It's the test of time without visible change. You continue to pray, you continue to listen, you continue to obey, and yet nothing obvious shifts. This is where many believers misread the moment. They assume, if this were from God, something would feel different by now. But Scripture shows that God often works below the surface before he works around you. Roots deepen before fruit appears. Stability forms before strength is visible. Silence here is not absence, it is inspection. Don't leave yet. What comes next will help you avoid undoing what God may already be forming. Many people walk away right here, not because faith failed, but because patience did. Here is the subtle danger few talk about. You can respond correctly and still drift afterward, not into sin, into evaluation. You begin measuring faith by outcome instead of faithfulness. Am I feeling closer yet? Is this working? Shouldn't I be past this by now? And slowly, expectation replaces trust. But faith does not grow by monitoring itself constantly. It grows by remaining. Scripture invites self-examination of the heart, not constant auditing of results. When obedience continues without reassurance, faith shifts from conditional to grounded. That transition is quiet and uncomfortable, but it is not regression. It is depth.
When faith doesn't feel alive,
but you're still listening. Here is the distinction that matters most. Preparation quiets distractions while increasing humility. Warning quiets comfort while exposing avoidance. Both feel similar on the surface. Both can feel like silence, but they move the heart in opposite directions. Preparation draws you closer, even without feeling. Warning creates resistance because something is being withheld. So ask yourself gently, is this season making me more teachable or more defensive? God's silence always clarifies something, either direction or resistance. If your faith slowed at some point, it didn't happen dramatically. It happened through small delays, minor compromises, quiet substitutions. And restoration often follows the same pattern. Small obedience, repeated attentiveness, unnoticed faithfulness. This is not about doing more. It's about responding again. Someone you love may be walking through this quietly, not losing faith, just learning what it means to keep responding without feedback. Sometimes, clarity shared gently is enough to help someone stay. The lie most believers accept about spiritual maturity sounds wise, but quietly limits growth. Spiritual maturity means you no longer struggle, no longer wrestle, no longer feel tension. But Scripture never defines maturity as comfort. It defines maturity as faithfulness under weight. Mature faith still listens, still responds, still submits, especially when clarity is incomplete. Growth does not always feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like repetition, like showing up again with fewer emotions than before. But Scripture consistently honors those who remain, not those who feel the most, but those who continue. Faith matures when it learns to trust God's character without needing constant confirmation. That kind of faith is quiet, steady, rooted. And when life eventually presses harder, that faith does not collapse. So this is where everything settles, not into resolution, but into direction. You don't need to feel inspired tomorrow. You don't need clarity all at once. You only need to stay responsive. One prayer not avoided. One truth not delayed. One act of obedience not postponed. That is how faith keeps growing even when you don't notice it. Because faith rarely collapses loudly, but it grows quietly when it's tended. And if you're still listening now, your faith has not stopped growing.